Are we live yet or no?
Yes, we are live. We have been live. Yeah.
I think we can start. So, Namaskar, Sarni. Once again, we are here with our COVID health education. Today, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for joining, watching us, and asking questions and concerns, getting them addressed, and feeling safe in your homes. Um, while all of us are battling with the COVID, with the pandemic, and trying to stay safe and healthy, but the stress and anxiety related to the disease and the constant isolation away from families, away from friends, has taken a deep impact or effect on our mental health. In order to address all these issues, today we have with us Dr. Chandan Kotwal, who is a consultant in old age psychiatry in London, UK, and Dr. Shafalika Ban Kotwal, a consultant again in old age psychiatry and a postgraduate trainer. Before we start the conversation here, I would like to invite Dr. Surinder Kaul. He has some important announcements to make. Dr. Kaul, please.
Yeah, namaskar to everyone. I wanted to make some disclosures that's important to be in legal compliance. This initiative has no financial implications. There is no money being collected either from the physician or from any agency or from any pharmaceutical company or from any institution. This initiative is purely an advice and educational awareness program, and in order to help in this humanitarian crisis. No, we are in a very horrible situation. I do not want to create a panic, but I would request everyone to maintain heightened caution for at least 1 month, because all epidemiological projections, you will see that it's going to have cascading effect, and any country, the bestest of the best countries, healthcare system can collapse. So why I'm saying that, why I'm reiterating that, and you will hear it out from other physicians also, that 81% of COVID, which are either mild or moderate, they can be taken care at home. It is 15% of severe disease of this. This is the data that we have been getting for last 1 year. So 81% will be mild to moderate symptoms who can be managed at home. 15% of these patients will have severe disease, which will require hospitalization. And rest 4 to 5% will be in critical state who will need ICU. So what we are trying to do is to help those with mild to moderate symptoms so that they do not go towards the severity of this disease. and prevent hospitalization, which is very much doable. And out of those 15%, to see that how best things can happen so that they do not go into the critical situation. Lives can be saved. Even if few lives are saved, that's very, very important at this juncture. So the medical fraternity has to stand up all over the world. Now, in this series, you will see some other physicians of international eminence who have worked on the ground in epidemics, in pandemics, whether it was Ebola, whether it is COVID, they will be part of this initiative. To give you a heads up, this Saturday, we will have Dr. David Hilmers, who is a professor in internal medicine at Baylor College of Medicine, and an astronaut who has been part of space missions, who has led teams for Ebola, for COVID, will be with us on Saturday, same time. We will continue to bring in the best of the best and stay positive, stay calm, do certain things. We are very much encouraged the way the volunteers team is pulling up the whole things in different ways in a best possible way. May God bless you. You will have blessings of God in abundance. Please carry on with this spirit. With that, I will pass it on to Dr. Shafalika Ban Kotwal. We have an amazing couple psychiatrists who are also very much into social service. So at this time, back to you, Dr. Shafalika Ban Kotwal.
Thank you, Surinder ji, and namaskar to everybody. Now, before we start, I just want to put things a bit into context कि आज हम क्या-क्या discuss करेंगे. जिन लोगों ने last 2 दिन के webinars किए attend, they would have seen कि we had Dr. Rana for 2 days. We talked about the physical aspects of the illness, how it affects the body, and what the treatments are available and what treatments are working. Today, we are going to change the attack a bit because along with physical ill health, COVID has led to a lot of psychological problems as well, as expected. You know, we are in the middle of a pandemic and our mental health is or will be affected. That is almost given. So today we thought, let's talk about the psychological impact of COVID, which is huge. So on that note, I will start with what is normal. You know, so when we say people are very anxious, we have to realize that anxiety is a normal emotion. So some anxiety kind of keeps us busy and active and helps us make the right choices. So in the context of COVID, if you are not anxious at all, कि अगर आपको बिल्कुल भी घबराहट नहीं है, for instance, आप anxious बिल्कुल नहीं है, you will maybe not wear a mask, or maybe you will not self-isolate because you'll think कि क्या होगा, कुछ नहीं होगा. So, you know, but then, so that way it is helpful, slight anxiety. But when it reaches a stage where it is affecting you in a way that you are not able to manage your day-to-day life, when it becomes overwhelming for you, that is the time to learn some tips about anxiety management, which we are going to discuss today. So that is just one of the things. Now, relating to COVID, it is a threat. And the basis of anxiety is threat. So when we perceive something as a threat to our existence or our survival, it is normal to have the emotion of anxiety. Yeah, because it is a way of coping with threat. And one of the things the body does when it responds to threat is the adrenaline sets in. So आप देखेंगे palpitation होती है, घबराहट होती है, heart rate बढ़ता है. So the body kind of goes into overdrive. Yeah. So that is how the body and the mind work together. So if we manage to control the thoughts and the emotions, automatically we'll see that our body will also be relaxed, our immunity will improve, and we will be able to manage COVID better. So that is the relationship between body and mind. They are very closely interlinked. And we will talk a bit about it more, but there are 3 things which are very specific to COVID. And I just want to touch on them. So in that sense, it's like any other illness, but we have to realize it's a pandemic. And the 3 specific things about COVID is that the trajectory of the illness is unknown. So for instance, what I mean is कि जैसे कोई बीमारी होती है, कोई भी बीमारी हो, acute हो या chronic हो, we know how it is going to start and how it is going to end. Mostly we know कि ये होगा, फिर ये होगा, फिर ये होगा, फिर दवाई लेंगे, फिर एक महीने में या एक साल में ठीक हो जाएंगे. Now COVID is very unpredictable in the sense कि पता नहीं है कि क्या होगा. So some people are hospitalized on the first day, some people are asymptomatic. So there's a wide spectrum, and that adds to the anxiety because there is this unknown. It is an unknown entity. Ki, how am I going to respond to this illness? I don't know, and that's where the anxiety starts. The second thing is because it's a new illness, there are, apart from oxygen, which is life saving, there are no really treatments which we are 100% sure are going to work apart from ventilators and oxygen. So that also increases the anxiety. Now the third most important thing specific to COVID is that there is this guilt because you are not ill yourself. You have this guilt कि मैंने अपने बच्चों को दे दिया, मैंने अपने parents को दे दिया, which is unique thing in COVID. वो किसी और illness में, apart from maybe Ebola and things like that, which almost never affected us. In that sense, this is the critical thing about COVID, कि आपको अपने बारे में ही नहीं सोचना है, आपको ये भी सोचना है कि मेरी वजह से मेरे बच्चे और मेरे माँ बाप जो एल्डरली है उनको भी अफेक्ट हो रहा है. तो इन एडिशन टू अपनी परेशानी के अलावा आपको घर वालों की भी परेशानी है, and that has added to the guilt and the anxiety and all that. So these are some specific things about COVID which I wanted to kind of put things in context. Now again, COVID is on a spectrum from asymptomatic people to people who are going on ventilators, and at each point in the journey of COVID there are some unique psychological problems which we have to deal with, starting from self-isolation on one end, and the other end of the spectrum is bereavement, where unfortunately, sadly, some people are dying. As Surinder ji said, it's a very minimum 4% of the population which is very severely ill and sadly dying. So we'll start this session by offering our condolences to the people who have left this world, and it's very unfortunate. So we will touch upon bereavement and how to deal with grief as well towards the end of the session. But we will start with some of the common psychological problems that we are seeing because of COVID. So thank you, Neerja ji. Back to you.
So I would probably go to Dr. Chandan Kotwal now and ask him about his experiences with his patients, dealing with the old age patients, the elderly people. What is the common psychological stresses or distresses that he sees in his day-to-day, practice, and what he has to offer to general public in terms of managing those stresses, because it's a very unknown, uncertain thing that is out there. We don't know when we are going to be affected. That's the most, I think, stressful stuff that everybody carries, weighs heavy on our minds actually. So Dr. Kotwal, please, could you please share your views about that, and then we can go to the questions and whatever, however we are thinking in terms of audience that's watching.
Thank you, Neerja ji. Namaskar to everybody.
And healthy.
If you will allow me, I will speak in English. और
Sure.
बीच में आप मेरे से हिंदी में भी पूछ सकते हैं कोई सवाल. I will be happy to answer that. तो सबसे पहले तो I will begin by paying tributes to all the health professionals, doctors, nurses, paramedics, police, emergency services, who have played such a significant and praiseworthy role and given such seva and in the line of duty to save and to help people suffering from COVID in their own ways. I was fortunate enough to be one of them as a doctor. I work as a psychiatrist here in the UK, and I also, as part of my duty, I manage patients both in the outpatients clinic as well as I have got inpatients as well. So I manage both patients with functional illnesses, which is depression, anxiety, psychosis, and so on. And also my other cohort of patients I manage is patients with organic conditions like dementia. So all in all, I manage patients who are of the older age group, about 65, above 70. And this is particularly significant because most of the illness, the people who have been worst affected by this pandemic have been the elderly people. Majority of the times, although there have been people under 65, over 50, and under 50 as well who have been affected, but not in so many numbers as much as the elderly people. So my patients, particularly patients who have suffered, and I have treated patients with on my dementia wards with suffering from COVID. They have been unfortunate enough because many of them have visited hospitals for other ailments. For example, if somebody suffered from a heart condition, or they had diabetes, they had to attend a diabetic clinic, or they had, for instance, cancer of an organ, and they had to attend the oncology clinic. They were unfortunate enough to have caught, even with a very short visit, or if they had accompanied their husband or their spouse to the hospital, they were unfortunate enough to catch the illness and become ill with it. So my patients who have come into hospital or who have come to the clinic, their main complaint has been isolation, social isolation, because um, because either they have been, I mean, again, social isolation can be on two grounds. First of all, they can either be patients themselves who became ill and naturally they had to isolate at home, or in majority of the cases, or they had to come into hospital and be isolated in hospital. Then the second situation is where they have had contact with a person who has had COVID, and as a result of that, they had to isolate for, say, about 10 to 14 days. So that is the second group of patients. However, the main complaint has been of social isolation, as a result of which initially they have coped with it because the isolation has been because of a lockdown situation. It has been very prolonged, and it has gone on for, let us say, almost a good part of a year, if not more. So yeah, so I think that is the main complaint that and as a result of that, I'm seeing patients are getting anxious, they are suffering from depression, uh, and they are suffering from bereavement or grief reaction for instance, if a loved one has died because of COVID, or a family member or a friend. So these are the main three psychological problems that I'm seeing.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what would you suggest? Like, we have everybody, each one of us probably here has a parent, in that age group, where they are handling this COVID situation all by themselves. They are anyways isolated, or
Mm.
they are by themselves, and there's no help around. Obviously, there's no help around for anybody right now. So, anything in particular that you would suggest for them to keep their mind off the stress, constant stress? I mean, stress is okay, as Shafalaka ji said. Anxiety, a little bit of anxiety is okay. That we can cope up on a day-to-day basis. But
Sure.
since this is
Yep.
fear, unknown and uncertain, what would you recommend for them, or anybody who is in touch with them? Maybe they can relate those things to such elderly
Yes,
people.
yeah, it has been a big challenge, undoubtedly, especially for elderly people who are, especially if the children are not around them. They may be living in the same country but in a different state, or they might be in another country. So those particularly vulnerable elderly people need support. And what are the ways? It has been a big challenge because you cannot now look towards your family or your friends or neighbors to come and help you like they used to do in the normal pre-COVID days, because of the risk of catching the infection and because of the risk of social isolation, as well as social distancing, which has been put into place. People have been reluctant. There has been a certain amount of fear associated with visiting, say, for instance, or helping out. However, initially this was a very big problem. However, as the pandemic has progressed, with the use of personal protective equipments like masks, frequent sort of face covers, or hand washing and sanitizers, that risk has been mitigated to a large extent. But at the same time, if there are things that you can do, and the main approach that has to be adopted in this situation, unlike any other instances, is social community input. That is the answer to this problem, because communities have got together, groups have got together, people have got together. As you can see, there are multiple groups now. So if you find a vulnerable family or an adult elderly person who's in your locality, the first thing what you have to do is to make them aware that you are aware that they are there. Get in touch with them, maybe use their phone. Easiest method is through the phone, and then get some services to them, because they probably are too old or too unwell to come out themselves. So you have to go there, maintain the social distancing. That is the most important mantra in this.
Yeah.
To As long as you maintain social distancing, you wear the personal protective equipment, there is a lot of hope. The chances are that you are not going to get COVID, because at the end of the day, COVID is spread, as our medical colleagues have spoken at length, it is spread through droplet infection. One person talking or sneezing, that is how, coughing, that's how COVID is spread through the exhaled air or the air we breathe through in the form of droplets. So if you are going to block that through masks and through adequate personal protective equipment, then one need not worry. Maintaining social distances, but helping the elderly people is priority. Giving them medication, for instance, they may be in need of medication which they have not been able to get. So you can do that. You can provide, also most important sustenance is through food. So you are providing food to them, or at least a meal a day. Some kind of a food packet can be delivered to them, and for that you can even drop that at their doorstep, and then leave and let them know that you have done that. And the main thing is that you are making them know that you are aware they are not alone. That is the main thing in this. I'm speaking also, I wanted to mention this, perhaps is the time to mention also, I'm not only a medic, but I'm also a COVID. I have suffered from COVID myself, which I got while treating my patients. So I have had the first-hand experience of COVID, and it has taught me a lot of things. For instance, the what I just mentioned, for somebody to know that that they are unwell or they are in isolation, is the most important therapeutic intervention that you can take to begin with. Because why? Because it gives them hope. Hope
Yeah.
is the main thing. Hope is the main thing in this, because they are not alone. The fact that they are not alone, that means a lot to people.
Absolutely. I think you said it very, very right that once they know they have people around who may not be able to visit, but they are around to help them out, to bring groceries to them, to bring food,
Absolutely.
supplies, medicines, which they need on regular basis. It's kind of um, reassurance for them that they're not alone in this battle. But I have a
Absolutely.
follow-up question again for the same thing. I'll go to Dr. Shafalika. I have so many questions, and they've been bothering me for a while. So this session, I think, is a very important one, because we often care more about our physical health without realizing that physical and mental health, they both work in tandem. And if we are not doing physically well, it affects our mind. If we are not doing mentally well, it affects our body. So, Shafalika ji, my question is. Uh, Even within a particular family, if elderly person gets COVID and is isolated, in a room for 14 days. I've had an experience with somebody who was there in that isolation. Family is there, they are taking care, they are doing whatever they can, isolating themselves and maintaining all safety measures. In spite of that fact, the patient felt lonely, or the family felt the guilt of him feeling lonely. Unfortunately, it didn't last long. But under those situations, what do we do?
So, so loneliness has been a byproduct, of the isolation. But to deal with loneliness, one of the things we have to remember, why are we self-isolating? Because if we constantly remind ourselves is that we are self-isolating because we want to protect ourselves and we also want to protect our loved ones. So that gives a bit of hope. that I'm, so it is kind of altruistic. I'm ill and I'm trying to protect myself, but I'm also trying to protect the world from getting the virus. So once you get that thing, it makes you feel slightly more positive about the situation. And then you have to deal with how are you going to deal with loneliness. I mean, there are various, it's a difficult situation, no doubt, because it's not loneliness for a day. Sometimes it's can carry on for weeks. And unfortunately, if you're ill, then you have to deal with added stress of being ill as well. So you're not only isolated, you are ill and you have got all these cognitions, emotions going on in your mind, that what is going to happen tomorrow? Am I going to get worse? Am I going to... So the point is to, if you're, so there's two categories of people who are isolating. One who are okay, who are not ill, and they are isolating, which is slightly easier situation to manage. And then the second category is people who are lonely, isolating, and they are ill. So the first category, when you're feeling well in yourself, is, and but you're lonely, is, so you have to do some simple measures. One is you have to structure your time. So if you have a structured, even if you're on your own in one room, so you still have to structure. So you have to make sure you get up at the same time and not spend the whole day in bed, which is very easy to do. So you have a schedule. So you get up, you do this, you look after yourself, you dress, wash, you have a bit of exercise scheduled in the day, even if it's walking in the room for 5 minutes. So you build that in. You connect with people through FaceTime, like Chandan said. So in one particular day you have a slot of half an hour when you're going to call your son, daughter, whoever, and you do FaceTime with them, and that helps you, get a bit positive about the situation. There are lots of in this internet kind of world, there's a lot of things on the internet, but it's important not to overload yourself with things on the internet about the illness. So only watch things which you know are going to give you pleasure. Everybody is different. For instance, I might like something maybe spiritual. So if I am that way inclined, like most of our parents are, to have some videos where you can, like motivational videos, so try and watch them, bhajans, whatever fancies you. If you are not that way inclined, watch a movie, but watch something every day which gives you pleasure. Yeah. And watching things is not just watching things, it also distracts you from thinking, because the anxiety, it's worry, it's a worry which is constantly going in your mind, and you have to find a way where you do something else in place of worrying about it all the time. Yeah. And that will calm you down. The body will, or if you get pleasure out of maybe watching a movie, you will realize that automatically both your mind and body are calmed down. Yeah. So that is, some of the things we can do to combat. The usual things like eating properly, looking after your health. So that is when you're isolated, but you're feeling healthy. Yeah. Now, the second group, which is slightly more trickier, is that you are ill and you are isolating. And that's when it gets very difficult. And that's when you have to manage your anxieties, because it's a very uncertain time. You might be ill today, but you think, what is going to happen tomorrow? Yeah. So that is the thing. And that is worry. So you have to, and that's where the anxiety management comes into control. There are a lot of things. See, so anxiety is because of your thoughts. Some people are less anxious, some people get very overwhelmed with anxiety, and lot of it depends on your upbringing. For instance, it depends on how you are normally as a person. If you're normally a very anxious kind of person, a perfectionist, because life is, as human beings, we want our lives to be predictable. So, so A leads to B and B leads to C. And when pandemics like this happen, everything is thrown into disarray because life is no longer predictable. Yeah. And that is the main reason we get anxious. I had thought that tomorrow I'm going to do this, and next month I'm going to travel, and now I cannot do anything. And on top of that, I am ill. And I don't know if tomorrow I'm going to need a ventilator, so things like that. So a lot of these emotions and thoughts are going around in the mind. So you have to kind of, and then the other thing with anxiety is then it starts affecting your body. So you start getting especially in isolation, you start focusing more on your body because there's nothing else to do. So every heartbeat, every palpitation, every dizziness, every slight bit of headache, which normally you would not even think about in your usual day to life, in isolation everything gets 100 times magnified. You know,
Yeah.
you are focusing on your physical health, and both of the emotions, the thoughts, and your physical health, they kind of feed on each other. So the more anxious you get, the more your heart starts palpitating, and the more your heart starts palpitating, the more your mind think, oh, something, I'm going to have a heart attack. So the first thing is to dissociate your thoughts from your body. So first thing you need to do is to focus first on your thoughts. So why are you thinking like that? So what is your one good way is to have a hierarchy of worries, you know. So what is your main worry? So if you have to pick up one main worry, is it that you think you are dying, or is it you think your loved ones are dying, or do you think you're going to have a heart attack, or do you think you're going to be disabled, incapacitated? What is your main underlying? So once you pick, that is important to pick up. It's only when you know what your main worry is, only then you can deal with it. A good way about dealing is to maybe write about, so this is my worry, and to learn to manage that one particular worry. And then once you, for instance, your main worry is that you are going to die. Yeah. Okay. So tomorrow you think, oh my God, my temperature is increasing. I might have to go to a ventilator. So once you have realized that this is your main worry, the second thing is, what is the evidence that you are going to die? Okay, there is a possibility, but that is the unknown. But what is happening now? Now you have got a bit of temperature. Chances are with paracetamol, you know, this and that, things are going to come down. There is no evidence as of now that you are going to die. So there is no evidence that tomorrow you're going to get a. I mean, life is unpredictable anyway. You know, even if without COVID, tomorrow anything can happen. Yeah, tomorrow you can go out and be hit by a bus. That is fine. And in COVID, tomorrow you might need a ventilator. But what are you doing today? What is happening today is that there's no evidence that you're going to have a heart attack. Yeah. So then, so that will calm your mind a lot. And then you have to there are certain anxiety management techniques which you have to learn to do in isolation. They are very hard to begin with, but once you start, then your body gets used to it. Yeah. And one of the things which one is distraction, which is very easy to do. Like I said, you know, watch TV, talk to people, so that you don't focus all the time on yourself. The second thing which we can do very easily in isolation as well is something called mindfulness. So mindfulness is that you focus on one particular thing at a time to prevent your thoughts from getting too overwhelming for you. Yeah. So we don't do it normally. So normally if I'm cooking, so while I'm cooking, I will think of 100 different things about my children, about my husband, about this. Now in COVID, if I'm in my room and I'm doing something, there'll be like 100 things going around. That my husband is ill, what's going to happen to my children, I'm going to die, world is coming to an end. So there are so many things. But if you take these thoughts away and just focus on the cooking, so you focus on whether it's peeling potatoes, cooking, boiling. So watch, eat activities, and you don't have to suppress your thoughts, but you just have to let them flow. So if you try and suppress the thought, that doesn't work, because that means you're just avoiding that thought. That almost never works. Because if you try and in your normal life, if you try and avoid thinking of something, the chances are you'll start thinking more and more about it. For instance, if I tell you, Nirjaji, don't think about a rabbit, for instance, you will notice that you will all the time now onwards, you'll all the time be thinking of a rabbit. So the point of mindfulness is that not to avoid these negative thoughts, but let them pass. You know, one of the analogy we use in mindfulness is that think of yourself on a bus stop, and these thoughts are buses that are passing you through. Yeah. So let these thought buses pass. Don't try to jump on the bus. Don't try to stop the bus, but let them flow. Let these buses flow. Yeah. So the mindfulness is difficult to start with, but if you do it even 10 minutes a day, you get used to it. Tomorrow you'll do it 20 minutes. So it applies to not just cooking. If you're reading a book, just soak in the reading, read about the characters, stop your mind from flying all around the place. And you will notice that as you do this, your body also starts relaxing. So the heart attack kind of situation you were facing, or palpitations, butterflies in the tummy, headaches, dizziness, they will also calm down, because you are just doing one thing. You're not letting your anxiety get out of control. So these are the things you can do easily in isolation. The other things are, simple things like relaxation is very good. You can there's a simple relaxation technique where you tense your muscles and relax them at regular intervals. If you do it 5 to 10 minutes, I mean, India is obviously, it's good with meditation and yoga, and they are very effective. They are the basis of all this meditation and yoga. It's all, you focus on one thing so that your anxiety doesn't get out of control. Yeah. So that is the basis of all these relaxation techniques. But the thing is, in isolation, you have to start slow. It's a very difficult situation. You're not expected do all of this and not think about death, and because that will come. Thoughts of death and ICUs and ventilators, that will come. The point is not for those thoughts to be the main thing. So the point is, you cannot change the situation. People are going to be unwell. All you can change is the way you react to them. The way you respond to these things is the only thing you can change. And what these techniques do is they improve your coping skills, and they improve how they help you how to cope with the situation, build your strength. And the point is to start very very low, do like 5-10 minutes, and then you extend it depending on how you feel. And general measures like exercise, looking after yourself, reading, doing pleasurable activities. You can even make a list of things which you like, pleasurable activities, whatever it is, reading, and then try and do them every day. So that is the whole point of coping with self isolation.
I'll go to Dr. Chandan Kotwal because I know that he had COVID and he went through it, and I've read the note that he sent to all of us, telling about his experience with it. In a little note, could you please tell us that once you went through the process? I know you said self realization, inwards, spirituality, reading, meaningful books and all that in that note, but after you were through with it, how was your experience coming to the normalcy of, although there is no normalcy right now, but coming to the normalcy of a day-to-day routine and a day-to-day life?
Well, that's a very good question. Nirjaji, if you will allow me, I just wanted to add one or two points to what Shafalika
Sure,
said here regarding
sure,
anxiety management. I think
absolutely.
whatever she said was spot on, very true. But also, I think I would add a bit of spiritual angle to it as well. I would suggest, because the reason for that is, and this applies to everybody in a different way. And
Yes,
I'm not prescribing any particular religion or any kind of one way of doing it. But what I was trying to say when I say spirituality, we have to think of the wider context that at the end of the day, man has made a lot of progress. People, even in a big, massively advanced country like America, people were on their knees, where you would never have imagined that people would die like this. But look what happened. America was leading in the toll in the advanced country with the best brains in the world. I think I wouldn't be wrong in putting it like that.
yeah,
And the cream, and look what happened. So nobody is immune to any of these calamities, be it corona, be it ebola, or whatever is going to happen in the future. So what exactly, as a psychiatrist, as a person who deals with mental illness and spiritual things, are very important. We have to put it in the wider context that these calamities have happened in the past, they are happening now, and they will happen in the future as well, because humankind is going to be faced with these, shall I say, unexpected, life threatening situations and challenges.
yeah,
So we have to take it in context that death is part of life and disease is part of life. And not everybody, it's unfortunate that this happened suddenly and unexpectedly, and many of the countries were unprepared for it. So I think we have to look at the wider context also, gradually understand those things we can't change. We have to accept. Acceptance is something people need to think about. At the end of the day, if something is going to happen, it will happen. You try your best, you give the best treatment, you give the best care, but we have to accept at the end of the day. So that's what I would like to add here. Coming back to your question about what was life after recovering from COVID. Yeah.
yeah,
Now, I have to say, I would have liked to tell more about the isolation because I went through the isolation, but Shifali has covered most of the points, and I'm happy to come back to that because that experience of isolation is a life-changing experience for many, many people. I'm sure they will agree because what it teaches you, you have never learned that before because you are on your own and you are and your, let's say, your maker, if I put it that way, in a general non-religious neutral way, your maker, and you are there, and that is a teaching of a big kind. So anyway, that being that, as I said, I can come back to that later. However, life, once you start recovering, and as Surinderji initially said, 85 to 90% people are going to recover, or maybe more. Even if they are severely unwell, the chances are that most of them will recover. People on the ventilator also, people who go onto the ventilator, in my own instance in UK, I can think of two of my community brothers who recovered from ventilators. So basically why I'm saying this is because to give hope to people that even if you reach a stage of extremely being unwell, being on a ventilator, the chances are that there's a fair chance that you are going to recover. So that's very hopeful. Plus, there are a lot of medications now. There are a lot of medications. They may not be curative, but they are effective. They are effective, and that should give a lot of hope to people as well. Including, antivirals, antibiotics. There are steroids. So even a plain drug like paracetamol is wonderful because it eases your temperature. It eases your breathing to an extent. It helps to make you feel so much relief. So there is a lot of hope there, no doubt. Plus the other things which I'm sure my medical colleagues would have touched upon, like inhalations and so on, and diet and so on. But coming back to the question of living after COVID, what was life after COVID? Yes, I personally, I can say you can be sick for 2 or 3 weeks. However, the effect of COVID does last a bit longer than that. It is not as if you are, let's say after 3 weeks, you're out of the acute phase of COVID and things are absolutely back to normal. Not at all. That's not what it is. You have a phase of what we call post-COVID. And what that means is you will suffer from, the chances are very high that you're going to experience body aches, what we call myalgia, or, weakness and body ache, a loss of strength, loss of energy that can last for months. Secondly, you may have symptoms like you may suffer from brain fogginess of the brain. So you may be back, say for instance, if you want to go, you get back to work, you realize, you're lacking in energy, your reflexes are a bit slow, your thinking is a bit slow, you get easily tired. That's the main symptom, is you get easily tired. Like for instance, your exercise tolerance. If you walk, you might feel a little bit of energy loss. At the end of the day, at work, you might feel you're losing your energy, you're feeling a bit tired, you want to pack up a bit early and go leave work. So those sort of things can happen. On the other side, you may also have some depressive symptoms. Depression is other thing to watch out for in the post-COVID phase. You may have mild symptoms or you may have a bit more than that. But the hope is the good chance that you're going to recover at the end of maybe 1 month or 2 months. So that's the good thing. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I hope that answers your question. That is the post-COVID phase. Yeah. Although
Yes,
research is still going on. It's a very new illness. They're still trying to get the data on the post-COVID effects. So hopefully in the coming years, we will be more clearer about what the post-COVID symptoms are, whether there is any long-term chronic ailments or chronic effects, what we call sequelae of this condition or not. That we'll find out. But yes, you are back to work and you start your work and as if, you have recovered. Yeah.
Good. Thank you so much. To the viewers who are watching us live on Facebook, if you have any questions, please do ask, because I do see people mentioning about transcendental meditation, general meditation, and as Shafalika ji said, mindfulness and all that. But if you have any questions, please post them. Shafalika ji, another important aspect of COVID and isolation and staying home and work from home, and kids are home, children are home, they are out of school, there is no interaction, there is no sports that they are playing at the moment, and it's been more than a year now. I think that is affecting a lot of, because I happen to talk to a lot of people around, and I can hear and I can pretty much feel the kind of anxiety they have now, because constantly staying home 24/7 with kids, all age groups, husband working in one room, wife in the other, kids working in separate rooms. It's affecting a lot of people mentally. Whether or not they seek any help for it, whether or not they talk about it, but you can pretty much notice that in their voice, in their interaction, and I personally feel that that's a very big area that needs to be addressed, because those kids who have a regular routine of coming back from school, the human interactions that they have, and then they come back from school, they go out to play, they have their own sports time, they are part of teams. Now they have nothing. So
Yes.
do you have any
So,
suggestions?
so yeah, so unfortunately, the kids have been, obviously they have been affected as well. Now the thing is, sometimes that as parents we forget that kids are also individuals in their own rights. So a lot of parents, they don't talk about these, because these are difficult conversations about illness, about bereavements, about COVID. So these are difficult conversations, but these are conversations you need to have, because kids have their own. It's better coming from you. So the first thing is to talk to your children, because no, they have to have the knowledge, why is this going on. So even children as young as 5 or 6 years old, we kind of, as parents, we keep them away from all the conversations, but they
Yeah.
do understand. And because they do understand and they don't have the full picture, they will get more anxious. So the best thing for parents to start with is to talk everything to the children, that there is a virus, this is what we are going to do, obviously in a positive way, that there is an end to the tunnel, but at this point in time, this is what it is. So once we start the conversation with them, there is going to be a reciprocal conversation, that they are also going to come back to you and tell them about their worries and what is affecting them. And sometimes you'll be surprised that what you are worrying about is totally different from what your children are worrying about. Now
Yeah.
children, and sometimes you'll be really really astonished at their kind of thought process, because children, when they don't have full knowledge, they kind of construct things in their mind, in their mind, and they make up, like a story. So they might they might have heard you talking about your ill mom, or something has happened to your mom, she's got COVID, but they don't know the rest of the story, and nobody has told them. So they will magnify it into, oh, is my grandma dying? What, nobody has told me that is what is going to happen. And that just adds to the anxiety. So the best is to go and to have these clear conversations with the children, because they are part of your family as well, and they are part of the community as well. So tomorrow they're going to grow up as citizens of this world. And the thing about COVID, if you think of it as an altruistic point of view, it's a very difficult pandemic, understood, but we are doing it for the common good. So why are we isolating? Again, I come back to, we are isolating to prevent the virus from spreading to the world and to us. So once children also understand that this is a good cause, while they're still healthy and they're going to enjoy things, okay, it's hard to isolate, but the wider cause is for the betterment, is to break the transmission chain. So so they will contribute to the process rather than being unwilling allies in the whole process. So that is one thing. The second thing is about the structure. So for instance, like I said, for yourself, you have to structure your life. Kids, they have to structure the structure the kids have might be totally out of the ordinary, because like you said, they have this play. And so like us, kids also want a bit of predictability in their life. For they have to go to school, they have to come back. Now everything has been thrown into disarray, there is no predictability. Yeah, but you can still create some structure. If you have got very young kids, you can still create some structure for them. That good thing about online lessons and all, just get them engaged with that. Now kids function best in their own support group, so you can't expect them to be in your WhatsApp group. We see a lot of parents putting their children in their families WhatsApp groups, where they will feel totally out of place, because there's all kinds of conversations going on which they are not understanding. So encourage them. Don't be scared of children having their own groups as a peer support group. where they can
Yeah.
freely discuss their worries, anxieties, which they might not be able to discuss with their parents. You don't have to always spy on, and worry about what is going on in the chat. If your children are sensible, mostly they are. And so let them have their own peer support group. And once children realize, they are very intelligent, once they realize that the whole world is going through, it's not specific to India or Europe or one country, the whole world is going through the same, it will give them reassurance that, okay, we are not alone, everybody is going through the same boat. Yeah. And the thing about playing, it's very difficult because playing is all about exercise and running and football. And the default mode, which we saw with our own children, who active football plays and cricket, and now they are confined to one room. And the default mode is, you go, okay, I'll wake up at 1 o'clock, there's nothing else to do. My own children in the
True.
beginning, at the beginning, we're waking up at like 1. That is because there's nothing to do. What am I going to wake up to? So it's important to put an end to that, because that then gets into a habit, and then it leads to weight gain, things like, these things which you don't want, and they don't eat properly. So, like, again, have a structure. Even though there is no school, you still have to wake up at a reasonable time, maybe not at 6, but okay, maybe around 8, and then attend these classes, and then have a peer support group, sit with your parents, involve them in cooking, involve them in walks, even if it's in your own garden or in your own apartment. Do things as a family. If you look at the positive side of the pandemic, has been a lot of children are now spending times with their parents, especially elderly parents who never saw their children, who were like working somewhere in Bangalore or somewhere, didn't see them for 6 months. Now they are living with them for 6 months. I mean, that has its own issues, I agree, family issues, but that also has its advantages, because you get to know, you get to see a aspect of your parent or your child which you might not have noticed before. So look at those things in a positive way, and children will also start looking at things in a positive way. They will see aspects of you which they didn't know. Even if though you're your mother or father, they probably did realize that you had this other side to you which they never saw, because this is
Sure.
the time to develop new hobbies, new interests, and pass them on. So it is a difficult time, but we have to always, like everything else, look at the positives of everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
Sure.
has, if the family is not ill, I mean, obviously when things get difficult, when there's illness, we have to use a different way of looking at things. But while you're ill, while you're not ill, everybody is well in the family. Take it as a positive thing.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, those are excellent points. And I do have a child at home, though he's not a child, he's an adult. But a lot of times I feel so disconnected because they don't share their thoughts with us. They have their own peer groups, but they don't express a lot. So you keep constantly worrying about their mental health, or whether they are doing right, they are doing okay, they're doing fine. No matter how many times you ask them, they're like, "Oh, we are okay," but you constantly worry about that. Now, of course, you wanted to touch the topic of bereavement. But
Yes.
before that, I'll go to Dr. Chandan Kotwal for something which is also very important. And I see that as a current situation, like the volunteer teams that are working on the field. A lot of our community people are engaged in bringing help to all these COVID patients, bringing them to hospitals, managing all the systems, blood, plasma, procuring oxygen from someplace. I mean, it's a very, very tense situation for them. Do you have anything for them, some tips for them to handle that kind of stress? Because unfortunately, they are in that stress because they are constantly seeing this distress that is being thrown at them. They're doing it, and we're so grateful, and such amazing teams out there. But at the same time, they have to manage their mental health as well as physical health. Anything you would suggest for them?
Well, they are doing a great job, no doubt about it. And
Yeah.
I think the situation in India, the way it is, because I'm a bit disconnected with India, being in the UK. However, I am part of a group that is doing charitable work and doing the voluntary work. And I'm seeing through social media mainly the kind of wonderful, fabulous work that is being done. They have divided themselves into teams. One team manages during the day, then they take some rest and a break. And that is so essential, taking some break and then let the other team come on and do that. And I think there are many such groups that are operating on the ground in India, and they are connecting the patients or their families to hospitals, They are giving them the necessary data and necessary contact numbers, connecting them with pharmacists, connecting them with centers, different hospitals, making them sort of aware or informing them about the bed availability, for instance, in real time, and also sort of in terms of connecting them with family or community kitchens. So they're doing a great job in this, and they're doing a great service undoubtedly. And of course there is going to be a lot of stress and strain associated with it, because most of them they are volunteers, as you rightly said. They don't have a medical background.
Yeah.
So but that should not be a limiting factor. You don't have to be a medic or a medical professional to do volunteerism. Today there is so much of information available. Okay, a medic is a professional, and we deal day in and day out with medical problems. However, the COVID is not just a medical problem. We all have realized that it is a social problem as well. It's got tremendous social ramifications.
Yeah.
So the volunteers are doing a wonderful job in giving a lot of social advice and social support to the patients, which is fantastic. So yes, they are doing a wonderful job. We would not have been able to deal with the situation had it not been for the volunteerism of thousands of volunteers, or even maybe millions of them, perhaps worldwide. So I think hats off to them. They need to look after their health also, take precautions, all the social distancing measures that have been announced, and we know very well they should maintain that, and they should take adequate rest. They should also have a nutritious diet, take care of, if they are suffering from any other health ailments, make sure they take medication for that on time, and give them a little bit of do a bit of relaxation as well, so that there are breaks and they don't burn out, because the main risk in this situation is burnout. And then, as a result of the constant exposure to stress, hearing bad news, for instance, if they are trying to help somebody, there will be a certain percentage, perhaps 5% of people who will not make it. And then the effect, they are directly in the line of facing the aftermath of that bad news, and that can have a very negative effect on their psyche, and can lead to symptoms like anxiety and depression in them also. So I think the other thing I would suggest is perhaps for them to get some debriefing from medical colleagues.
Yes.
I mean,
Absolutely.
if yeah, so that might be one way of us medical colleagues helping our volunteer brothers and sisters, by giving them some time from time to time, to talk to them and say, how are you feeling? Can
Mm.
is there anything we can do? Do you need some help? Do you need some advice, or do you just need, because the main thing in debriefing is you are just talking to somebody, a professional, who knows about what stress is and what stress management is. Because stress can be a killer. We all know that. We downplay the effect of stress, but actually,
Oh,
over a period of time, stress can be a killer. So we
sure.
have to intervene in time and help
Thank
them.
you. Thank you so much for this. Yes, this is important. So, coming back to you, Shafalika ji, you wanted to touch this topic of bereavement, wherein
Ye-
the patient loses
Yes.
the battle, and
Unfortunately pass. So we have seen that we have to put things in perspective, is that there's a very small percentage of people that will who will unfortunately pass away, but we have seen deaths. And so bereavement and grief is something we really need to work on. Now there are few key things about managing grief, and one of the things is it is very individual, so there's no one size fits all. So a person A will grieve in a particular way, and B might grieve in a totally different way. So don't be judged by society standards of grief. Especially in India, we have to try and remember that there is no right or wrong way. You grieve as you want. If you want to go and do something totally out of the blue, which you normally wouldn't do, just do it if that helps you. Yeah. because it is going to bring out a lot of emotions in you, especially if we look at it in the COVID context. One of the things you will be left with, some of us will be left with, is guilt. Is there anything I could have done to save this person? There's we heard here of shortages of you know oxygen cylinders and beds, and then when your loved one dies, the guilt of should I have done something different? Should I have done this? Should I have probably been more proactive in getting a bed for them? That might have saved them their life. So there is a danger in this kind of guilt of affecting your grieving process. So you have to challenge it head on very early in the bereavement process. Yeah. Because the guilt can change a normal grief reaction to an abnormal grief reaction. Yeah. So a normal grief reaction is that you go through various emotions of anger and shock and denial, where initially you're denying, oh, this can't be happening to me, and then you're angry with the whole world, and why I'm such a good person, only good things should happen to me, why has suddenly this person died? Then there's kind of shock and numbness, and there are bodily symptoms of not being able to eat or sleep, and then you're losing weight. So there's all these kinds of emotions going on. And but in normal grief, the mind and the body works through them. So it is kind of being on a roller coaster of emotions. You'll have very bad days when you'll be really upset, and then the next day will be you go in the depths of grief and despair, when everything is bleak and dull, and you think the world is coming to end, I'm going to die. So you have to work through the process. You cannot hurry it up. You cannot say that, oh, by next week I should be fine. That is never going to happen. It is a slow process of working through your emotions, and everybody's speed of working through the emotions is difficult. Some people can do it quickly, and some people it takes months or sometimes years. So the other thing is there's no set time. Although in psychiatry terms we say, okay, we give grief 1 year, and then we review the situation. So after 1 year, we kind of review the person. Are they still, okay? And is there any problem, or has it gone? Because there's the possibility of grief then turning complicated, going into depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, especially in current COVID condition. But why I talk about guilt is, if we don't manage the guilt earlier on, there is a possibility, because of the suddenness of the whole thing. So one day the person is alive, and the next day the person is not alive. So these are the kind of preconditions for having an abnormal grief reaction. Is 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 your loved one suddenly from being very healthy person to dying the next day or in the next 2 days? The second thing is, there's no ventilator, no bed, and the person has died, and you are left with overwhelming sadness. Have I done something different? So the one thing is, you have to realize that it is an unrealistic guilt. Unreal, because there are some realistic guilts. Okay, if you didn't do something, okay, then you might feel that is fine, you can feel guilty. But feeling guilty about things you cannot control is unrealistic guilt. So if we consider the situation of not being able to find a bed, there are some things in life you cannot control, and you have to realize that some things are beyond you. And once you realize that, you will be slightly more positive about the situation and punish yourself less. Because one of the thing in grieving process is to look after yourself and not punish yourself for things which you have no control over. Yeah. So you get these thoughts cleared in your mind, that this is a worldwide pandemic, and people are dying, and they are dying not my loved ones are dying not because I have or I haven't done something. This is the nature of the illness, and this is how the world is coming to. So once you have challenged it head on, then you give yourself time. You do the usual things of looking after yourself, because the person has died but you are still here. And the worst outcome for your family or your children is going to be that you are also going to die because of not looking after yourself. You know what I mean? So you have to put things a bit into perspective and work through it. And the chances are, over time, from a roller coaster of emotions, you will reach a stage where you'll have the good days are going to outnumber the bad days, and you will get on in your life. Doesn't mean that you have forgotten the person, but it means that you are getting on with your life. And there'll be some days, anniversaries, for instance, birthdays, when you will remember that person, but in a fond way, and not in an overwhelmingly sad or way of you wanting to maybe join them or kill yourself, die because of that. Not in that way. So give yourself some time, have a support group of friends, not every random person, because people have trouble understanding bereavement, especially sometimes, when people haven't gone through bereavement themselves, they find it difficult to understand. So give people that chance, that they might not sometimes say the right things to you, but don't hold them against them. No, don't hold it against them. They will eventually, but if they are your friends and you are close to them, have them in their support group. Yeah. And talk to them. Talking, we take talking very lightly. Oh, why should I talk? But talking is the most therapeutic thing you can do, even if it's a random talking, ruminating about the good days you had with the person, the bad days. You might have not had a good relationship with that person. It's okay, but you still need to ventilate it and you need to talk about it. And slowly it lets your body and mind work through the situation. Now, the risk is, if you hurry things up, if you don't do this support group thing, if you don't seek out friends or support groups, your grief can turn into complicated grief, and that's when sometimes happens, especially in traumatic things like COVID. Now, the difference between normal grief and complicated grief is, that okay, 8 months, 9 months have passed, but you have this overwhelming desire to join that person. The person has died and you want to go and join them now. And you can't sleep, you are still losing weight, you are not able to function. Yeah. So that means, this slowly, from a normal grief reaction, you're turning into something which is slightly more complicated. You have intrusive thoughts about the person which you can't shake, so you keep thinking about person all the time. Sometimes people have images of the person. You wake up and you see this person at the end of the bed, and that is where you have to be careful, that your normal grief is turning into complicated grief, and that's the time when you need to get help. Yeah. So there's two ways it can go. From normal grief, it can turn into a major depressive disorder, whereas after so much time and all, you are still preoccupied with the death. That's the time to get a psychiatrist to help you. The second way it can go, which can easily go in COVID, is something called post-traumatic stress disorder, because it's a catastrophic event of seeing somebody who's sitting next to you and then them going into ventilated and then, possibly dying in a few days. So these traumatic things, a good thing is there is treatment. So once this bereavement goes into a realm of PTSD and depression, everybody has to understand that these are treatable illnesses. But the thing is to recognize them and to get help. PTSD is very treatable, and depression obviously has got a very high success rate of getting treated. But get help, don't keep it to yourself, because PTSD especially can be life threatening. It can affect your life, because you also have to live now for how many years, for your children, for everybody. So you need to get better. So get help at that point.
Yeah. So I think I'll add I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a specialist in here, but as a common person, I could say that there is no closure as such, because the families are not able to come
Yeah,
together, cry together, laugh together,
sure, sure.
talk about the person who has just left them, even if it's uncertain, it happened suddenly, or the person had a long illness, but there is nothing that is bringing them together, and they're able to share those feelings, closure. We cry,
Yeah.
especially in our community, we have these 12 days of grieving,
Yes.
and that helps us cope up with the
Yes.
whole process of this death, and we are able to come to terms with that. Somebody, of course, grieving, as you said, everybody takes their own time to cope up with that, but those 12 days are definitely they help us to overcome a lot of those depressing thoughts, or things that we would think otherwise. But with the family support, friends coming and visiting and crying and laughing and
Yes.
chatting,
Yes.
that
Yes.
would give a lot of closure to it, and that is
That's
missing
not
in this part.
happening. So Chandan, he
Yes.
wanted to
Yeah.
say something about.
Yeah.
This is a very important point.
I just
We have
wanted
raised.
to add to what Shifalika, what you have said. Just one point which Neeraj ji has rightly pointed out is one of the things is a lack of closure, and that lack of closure can lead to pathological grief. And that is a very important element, because in the COVID context, for example, what is happening is when the patient or a person or a loved one is going into hospital, then you know that you're not going to see them again, perhaps, because whilst they're getting, hopefully they will recover, but if they don't during that period of treatment, no family members are allowed to go there. They are not allowed to see the loved one as we would do in the normal circumstances before the COVID situation, where we would go visit our family members, talk to them, take some food with us, share some food with them, sit in a side room, perhaps, or on the ward with them. All that has been curtailed. All that has been missing. It is not allowed now. So that has added a lot of anxiety, I'm sure, and a lot of angst and heartbreak to the families, because they cannot see their loved ones when they are in hospital. And one of the ways with which I'm sure people are coping is through things like talking to them on FaceTime, or using a tele video system of the hospital on iPads, with a nurse staff member holding it next to the patient so they can see their loved ones. And I would suggest is, whilst the loved one, the person who's in hospital, is able to talk, I think it is time, it's very crucial time, if they are, before they get worse, that you need to talk to them. You need to share your feelings with them. You can say a thank you to them. You can say, I love you. Or you can say to them, thank you for everything that you have done. I know you are going through a difficult time, but yeah, whether it is your parent or a brother or a sister, it's a very emotional, but you have to have these conversations with them while they can still talk. Because if they are going to get worse, you are not sure whether they will survive. So that can help in bringing some degree of closure. That is just one suggestion I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think pretty much we talked about the issues that anxiety, depression, and COVID could lead to. And anyone who has questions can put that in the chat box on Facebook, and Shafalika ji or Chandan ji could answer them. Thank you so much, both of you, for sparing this time. And besides this, you guys are doing an amazing job with helping people in coordinating and, of course, treating them as well, whether it's on phone or personal, or it's amazing to see both of you doing wonderful job. Thank you so much for that. So
thank you very much.
Thank you. Tomorrow we'll have another session which will be taken by Dr. Vikas Jogi, infectious disease specialist. On Saturday, as Dr. Surinder said earlier, we'll have Dr. David Hilmers, professor in medicine at Baylor College of Medicine. So we'll have these sessions daily for now. And any questions, anything that you guys are feeling out there and you want to ask, please ask away. Don't hesitate. We're just trying to be a supportive team here from 7,000, 8,000 miles away. And but our heart and our prayers are there with you. So namaskar. See you soon.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.